Hey friends, welcome back. I am very excited today because I'm seeing a different kind of film. We've talked about a couple of bears recently, one being Pooh Bear. Now let's talk about Cocaine Bear. This film is directed by Elizabeth Banks and it's written by Jimmy Warden. Jimmy Warden co-wrote The Babysitter Killer Queen and is currently working on a project called Borderline, which they've written and directed, and it stars Samara Weaving. That looks like a really interesting thriller, but today's film is actually based on truth. I would never have believed it. This comedy thriller, some people are calling it action, is about an oddball group of cops, criminals, tourists, and teens in a Georgia forest where a 500-pound black bear goes on a murderous rampage after getting on the stuff. And sadly, this is the last film from Ray Liotta. The film also stars Kerry Russell, Margot Martindale, Matthew Rhys, Brooklyn Prince. It's got a wide array of actors, so I'm assuming plenty of kills. And I've seen the trailer for this one several times because I just could not avoid it. The marketing was really thorough. I'm excited to just go in and watch this one. I actually think it's going to be really good, or just exactly what it sets out to be. It's not serious, it looks like fun, and also don't look up the true story because it's very sad and not like this at all. I also loved the tagline for this one, which is "Get in line," which I thought was quite clever. And another fun fact about this one, even though it's meant to show the quintessential national park in America, this film was actually shot in Ireland. But enough talk, I'm going to the premiere here in Perth, Australia, but I believe it's playing basically everywhere from today, which is really exciting. I'm gonna let you know whether it's worth going and checking this one out straight away or if you should wait for VOD. Let's go see what all of the fuss is about. Hi friends, I just got out of the movie. Not bad, not bad. This movie wasn't what I expected, not in a bad way, it just was different to how it was presented. Just so you guys know, I always, and you probably already know this, but I always, when I edit these spoiler-free videos, I've obviously already seen the movie when I'm editing it, so I make sure I cut parts out of the trailer if I'm going to show any of the trailer that are spoilers. And I feel like this is one of those movies, because I had seen the trailer, and this is one of the reasons I avoid trailers, there was so much given away, but because it's such a fun movie, I didn't really mind at that time, but because it also is quite predictable, it was kind of like a bummer because I knew exactly what was going to happen like the whole movie. So if you can avoid it, I know I'm speaking way too late, but if you can, probably do. The reason I think it's different, and I do think that the blurb does it maybe like a little bit of a disservice, because this is a film where you're following several different characters and them all, you know, going to this national park, but it's also before that they're all in different places, and you know they're kind of like gonna meet all up, and it's really how they're gonna meet, how all of the characters are gonna interact, which is the interesting part. It could have just started in the national park and went from there, which I thought it was going to. I really thought it was gonna be like you discovered all these things that were happening at the same time, but it's a little bit different to that, and probably a little bit more well thought out because of it. But I did find, because you're following so many different characters in this movie, the pacing and the comedy and like the banter in between the characters were all really different. I was not expecting to love this film because I'm not a huge fan of like American humor. I like more dry, like English, Australian humor. Of course, there is definitely exceptions to that rule, but I do like dry and satire films, although of course there's a lot of them that are American, but because this was kind of like an action thriller, I was expecting it to be a little bit more kind of broad, to a broad audience, and not so like satire, and I was definitely right on the nose with that. But there are a couple of characters I really enjoyed, and I felt because there was so many different avenues, and I guess they were jumping between different characters, the pacing for the film feels a little bit jolty, and I think some people would love this, but for me, I only really loved a couple of characters. And so when we were in different spots in the movie and it was really focusing on other people, I really wanted it to kind of like hurry up because there was so much interpersonal kind of like drama going on, and I didn't find that stuff as thrilling, obviously, as like the bear scenes. Yeah, I just felt that it was just a little bit uneven in terms of tone. And just speaking from a horror perspective, even though I'm reviewing this more as like a thriller film, I know that a lot of horror fans don't like when they mix comedy with any horror. I'm assuming if you go see a movie with this title, you would know that it's got both of that. So I think straight up that's going to separate the people, or like weed the people out who it's just not going to work for. But I would say just keep in mind that it is very like uneven the way it's paced because you are jumping around a lot. Sometimes that helps move a movie like forward. There's just so much going on, but I felt like they really took their time in each scene, and I did feel like some of it dragged because of that. But that's probably like all of like the negative stuff in the film. I'm actually really thrilled about the positive parts of this movie. The bear looked fantastic. Absolutely no one is like beautiful, but so good. This is a film that could not have been made even like 5-10 years ago, and now it's just, I'm sure it's gonna outdate. Yeah, I know, but I think that it looked fantastic, and I honestly didn't even give a second thought to it being like a CGI bear half the time. I just thought it looked really good. But the main attraction for this film, which I think a lot of you guys are gonna love this film because of, is the gore. It goes all the way and a little bit beyond. The audience, I was sitting next to two women and they were talking throughout the film. I'm gonna say that. Every time there was a joke, which is like every 2.5 seconds in this movie, they would say, ha ha, that's funny. Anyway, they were really taken aback by the gore, and I heard them have a little conversation about, oh my gosh, I was not expecting it to be like this. A couple of times during the film. It gets really brutal, and I guess maybe that's what kind of jerked me back out for it, because it was so exciting and brutal. And then it would go into these moments where there were, I guess, you know, subplots, and I just wanted to see the bear and the action, and the subplots to me weren't as exciting, obviously. But of course, with a film like this, they have to pace it out with some kind of storyline going throughout. But because the characters that they mostly focused on for one of like the main side plots, it just wasn't as interesting as the other ones. For me, Margot Martindale was just the best. And what I liked about this film is it was really clever in its scripting. There are very obvious jokes, and then there's kind of like subtle, intricate moments that you might not pick up, things in the background, just little like one-liners they say. They have the big one-liners where everyone laughs, but then they have these small little jokes, and I just really liked her character. And then of course, Brooklyn Prince, who, if you have not seen Florida Project, I absolutely loved her in that. And it was really interesting seeing her a little bit older now. But I liked her dynamic between her and her friend. So that was like one of my favorite kind of subplots. But I would say, because there are so many kind of like different things going on, it does suit different tastes at the same time. So this is kind of the perfect movie if you want to see it with someone who's not a full horror fan, not a full thriller fan, but you kind of get a little bite of both at the same time, and including comedy and different styles of comedy. So I couldn't say I enjoyed it all the way through in every single aspect, but what it did, I think it did really well, and I think it exceeded my expectations slightly. That sounds so mean, but I do think it's exceeded my expectations, and it has some great one-liners. I think it's going to go down as being like this cult kind of classic film, because we haven't really had an American comedy do this kind of thing in a while and just be zany. Last thing I can think of is like Snakes on a Plane, which is not a bad movie. I only watched that like a couple years ago, and it's not bad. But this one is funny, it is super gory, and it has just a couple of different like types of characters to keep everyone happy. The gore was so good, guys. I cannot go see it for the gore alone. You just need to watch all the gore scenes. I was so excited, and it just kept getting more brutal. There's this one moment. If you know, write it down. If you think you know what I'm talking about and you've seen it, write it down in the comments, write spoiler, and write it down a couple of lines. I want to see if the same part got you that got me. I had fun watching it. I did think it was slow in parts, but the gore just saved it for me. Not really my kind of film. I'm not one for action, and I really don't want to put it in a genre box, but I thought it was going to be more thriller, but because of the gore, I would probably consider this one to be more of a horror, which is really interesting. But it's like, it's intended to be scary, so it's just so hard to see that through all of like the slapstick moments. I'm going to give this one a personal score of 7. I do think a lot of you are going to absolutely love this film, but it's just my personal taste, and that's why it's a personal score. Scare score, I'm going to give it a 7 for the gore, and originality, I'm going to give it like a 4. I don't think it's very original. I think a lot of the scenes are very predictable, what's going to happen, but that's just the way that's just the nature of these kinds of like action films. There's only one way it can really go, and once you figure out where their line is with what they're doing, it's very, it's interesting to see them stick to it basically. But they do so while throwing in some like fun jokes and making it a good time. Have you seen this film? I really want to know in the comments what you thought of it, what your personal score is, and what you thought the goriest, almost like intense moment was. I really hope, I think everyone will feel the same. And if everyone does, it's going to go down as like a classic gore like kill moment. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I hope you're all having a fantastic day. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. If you do want to support what I do here on this channel, you can head over to my Patreon. It's always linked down below. Sign up, it's only $2 a month. You get my whole back catalog of bonus videos, and you get a new bonus video every single week. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll talk to you all soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.